This episode of Roaring Fork Wellness Weekly is brought to you by Glenwood Moms for Moms, a social network for local moms providing connection, information, support, and inspiration. Join for free today and spread the word to all your mom friends from pregnancy to grandmotherhood. It's www.glenwoodmomsformoms.com. Welcome to Roaring Fork Wellness Weekly podcast, where we strive to bring you options and resources to live a healthy and fulfilling lifestyle in the Roaring Fork Valley and surrounding areas. I'm Kimberly Henry. You can learn more about Roaring Fork Wellness at www.rfwellness.com. This episode of Roaring Fork Wellness Weekly is brought to you by Glenwood Moms for Moms, a social network for local moms providing connection, information, support, and inspiration. Join for free today and spread the word to all your mom friends from pregnancy to grandmotherhood. GlenwoodMomsForMoms.com is the place to go to get more info and get started today. Our guest this week on Roaring Fork Wellness Weekly is Kersten Wilson of Awaken to Conscioushealing. Kersten, welcome.
Thanks, Kimberly.
It's so great to have you not in the studio, but on the line, I guess.
It's good to be here.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit. Well, first of all, where are you talking to us from today?
I am talking to you from Carbondale, from my office.
So you're located in Carbondale, and you're in private practice. What is it you do at Awaken to Conscioushealing?
Well, there's quite a few services that I offer depending on the person that I'm seeing and their needs. I generally like to describe some of my approaches in Eastern philosophy practices and Western practices. So as a therapist, one of the obvious things that I do is help people with the challenge that they're walking in the door with. And I not only help them get through that, but I also support them in remembering the simple truth about who they are, their existence as a person, and really encourage them to thrive at a level that they may not have thought was possible.
So what is it that someone would walk in the door looking for from you?
Well, that really depends. I do a lot of work with children and teenagers. It's one of the areas that I specialize in, and I also work frequently with adults. Mm-hmm. And so if a child or teen were coming in to the door, they might be working through some friendship struggles, some self-esteem, just unhealthy behaviors. Perhaps they've been through some sort of traumatic experience, and the same actually goes for adults. So a lot of people come in with very different issues, although at the core of it, many of it is the same. So oftentimes people are seeking to be happier, to be healthier, to have a sense of self-love or whatever it may be. So even though people can come in with different needs, at the core of it, what I often try to support them in working through not only that main challenge, but also how to be the healthiest and happiest that they can be.
So would it be fair to categorize you as a mental health therapist? Is that kind of the opening of the door?
Yeah. Yep. I'm a licensed professional counselor, an LPC, mm-hmm. and you could call me a mental health therapist. You could call me a psychotherapist. There's all these different words which can make it really confusing for people, mm-hmm. but they're similar descriptions.
Okay. And so you talked about Eastern and Western. So let's clarify for those who, don't walk on those worlds. When you say mm-hmm. Western, what are you talking about?
Yeah, that's a great question. These are just general frameworks, so it might not be clear or accurate to people. So it's the way that I describe it, just to give it a category. So when I speak of, Western therapy approaches, sometimes that means focusing a little bit more on, specific education with people around how to work with their thoughts and their behavior patterns, and educating clients on how the brain works so they can exercise power over that. And there's often a lot of emotional education, which can help clients to understand that all emotions are good and they really show up to teach us something. And if we are awake and mindful to this, rather than being scared or overwhelmed by our emotions, they become extremely powerful teachers in helping us reach our goals. So the Western might be a little bit more in the realm of thinking through things and offering education. And in the Eastern side, there might be more mindfulness practice, more meditation, tapping exercise called emotional freedom technique. I do art and expressive therapy. I also do nature-based therapy, and I'm in the process of incorporating medicinal aromatherapy with oil essences. Mm-hmm. And then the Phoenix Rising yoga therapy that I offer is a combination actually of both Eastern and Western approaches.
And you mentioned that your specialty population is children and teenagers. How did you move in that direction?
Well, I remember when I was going through my school, I just adored working with kids and teens. They are so fun, and they're also very challenging. And I felt that I could relate to, kids and teens very well. And it's just a passion. It's a population that really lights me up, and I really enjoy working with kids and teens. I feel like there's a lot of possibility in helping them at a younger age to learn a lot of things about the human condition that we don't really get taught in the school system or in our families or even in our culture at large.
And are you doing special programs for children and teens, or is that they're just coming to you on a one-on-one basis?
I do offer group therapy, and I do different workshops and develop different retreats depending on the time of the year and the needs. And so most of my services right now are individual, and I also am able and really enjoy doing groups and workshops.
What is the very favorite thing component to your practice right now?
That's a tough question. Because there's a lot I love. I just get so psyched. It's kind of one of those things that I say a lot to my clients. This is what I get geeked out on, is the self-help and healing world. But one of the recent certifications and passions that I've been pursuing is somatic therapy, which is connecting more and using the body as a tool instead of I shouldn't say instead of the mind, but also in partnership with the mind. So I have just been certified in Phoenix Rising yoga therapy. And that is a modality that combines some of the ancient wisdom and practices of yoga and also some contemporary psychology.
Okay, so how is that different than going to a yoga class?
Well, the certification that I have in Phoenix Rising yoga therapy is one-on-one. So The big difference is that I'm not teaching a group class, although there is a training for that. I do not have that group Phoenix Rising training yet. Mm-hmm. The certification that I have is the individual one-on-one yoga therapy session. And so I'll say this to the listeners, that people do not have to like yoga or have ever practiced yoga to participate in Phoenix Rising. So it's done on the ground mostly. People can absolutely stand up and do postures standing, although what I have is a Thai massage mat. So it's this thick, comfy mat where there's a variety of elements to a session. And some of those elements are using breath work, doing some guided intention setting, and working with the body, essentially. So the body is an amazing tool and a source of inner wisdom for us. It's just as our minds hold memories, our bodies do as well. And so the goal of a Phoenix Rising session is to really help people practice embodied mindful awareness. to be present right here and right now as we're working with their body and having therapeutic dialogue. Because what's happening in our body and the way that we're showing up in our body is often very reflective of how we also show up in our day-to-day life, in our relationships, and life at large.
Mm-hmm. And speaking to you as a yoga teacher, not Phoenix Rising Yoga, but just as a yoga teacher, I can totally agree with what you're saying. You can see the way that a person moves, some different aspects of their personality or what they're going through.
Absolutely. And it's a wonderful experience to start and get connected to our body, because often we're very disconnected. And even though we're aware and connected on some levels, there's so much more depth that people can access when they start to slow down and they have, the guidance and presence of myself as a Phoenix Rising practitioner to support them in exploring. And I often tell people that, those places where we have aches and pains or we keep getting re-injured in our physical body, well, there's a story behind that. And Phoenix Rising helps us understand that story from a therapeutic angle.
So did I understand correctly when you were talking a few moments ago that you're doing talk therapy, if you will, while you're doing body movement?
That's correct. And the talk therapy that's happening in a Phoenix Rising session is different than talk therapy per se, sitting in my office on a chair on a couch. Mm-hmm. So the therapy talk is a way for the person to really hear themselves. So often when they're sharing whatever is coming up for them during a yoga therapy session, I am repeating back what they're saying. Mm-hmm. I'm not filling it in with a bunch of my thoughts or opinions or suggestions or education. It's very pure dialogue so they can really hear themselves, because often we don't get that in our communication with people.
So who's a good candidate for Phoenix Rising Yoga?
Anyone. And I truly mean that. This modality can be adapted to kids. I've done sessions with kids and teens, and they're such a treat to work with. Adults obviously can do this, and even if people have physical injury. Of course, there are some injuries and conditions that I won't work with at the time. But if someone has just come out of a surgery or someone's not interested in, having physical touch, which is part of a session because I'm supporting people in stretches and yoga postures, then that doesn't need to happen. We can sit in chairs if someone is less flexible. So it really can be adapted to anyone who is just open to having an experience of finding some inner wisdom that lies right inside of their own body.
So I would assume that, you mentioned you have several tools that you work with, and this being one of the newer ones, that when someone comes in to meet with you, that you're going to work with them on which options are best. So you're not going to necessarily do Phoenix Rising Yoga unless that's what they want or that you agree on.
Absolutely. Yeah, when people come in, there's a whole process of intake and just getting to know each other. And first of all, making sure that we're a good fit for each other, because that's pretty important when people are working through some significant, healing and growth, that they feel connected to the therapist or person that they're working with. And then I meet my clients where they're at. That is a huge success point in therapy, is meeting people where they're at. And so if someone is not wanting to do something, then we're not going to do it right then and there. Mm-hmm. I will, however, encourage people and gently push if I think it's beneficial for them, because that's part of really helping people grow through maybe some of the self-limiting beliefs that we all have. But I'm not going to make them be someplace that they're not.
So with the Phoenix Rising or any of the therapies that you use, can you share with us some of the results that you've seen? Without being too specific, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start with some Phoenix Rising results. And I think one of the reasons that Phoenix Rising is so successful, specifically when I compare it with some talk therapy, is because one of the neuroscience aspects of Phoenix Rising is that it gets into the limbic part of the brain, which is more in the middle, the deep part of our brain, where there's more emotions and traumas and, ingrained patterns. And so when Phoenix Rising can access more of this mid part of the brain, there tends to be more success, a little bit longer lasting, significant change in people's lives. It is not to say talk therapy doesn't work. Talk therapy is extremely essential, and I have noticed that with talk therapy, sometimes there are just limits, like there are to every modality, because talk therapy tends to stay in the prefrontal cortex a little bit more, which is where there's just more thoughts and thinking, and we need that. But the Phoenix Rising is an element that pairs really well because it can get into the places that are hard to access in the brain. So some of the success stories I have witnessed and been a part of is a woman who was trying to get pregnant for many years, and after doing Phoenix Rising sessions, she was able to conceive, and she had attributed that largely to Phoenix Rising because she was able to work through a lot of her limiting beliefs and fears around that from an emotional level and physically, just opening up her body more. Another example of Phoenix Rising that has been successful is, witnessing someone exploring some chronic pain in a physical condition that they had, in which there was a lot of anger and sadness, and there was a connection made between how all of that pain, anger, and sadness was not just showing up in her physical body, but also showing up in her life as well. So it was a great bridge to start becoming aware of when the stuff is in her body, like how is that also showing up in her life. And some examples from my private practice is helping people. Essentially, this is kind of an overview of my clients, is getting to a place where they can accept all parts of themselves and really love all aspects, because what often creates pain and suffering in people is that we disown or we're running from our shadows, our qualities, and any of the hard experiences that we've had in life. And when we do that, when we resist those parts of ourselves, the issues persist. And when we allow ourselves to feel, we heal. And it's a powerful cliche that I say quite a bit to my clients. And so it's really beautiful. And what, stokes my fire in this work is really standing beside all of my clients who are absolutely doing amazing work and transforming themselves, and really getting to a place where they can be okay with everything that's happening in life and just wake up, to these other ways of being and believing.
Wonderful. It sounds like you've had some fantastic results, and I can tell that you love what you're doing. The passion just comes through in every word.
Thank you. I do. I am very grateful that I get to be one of those people that, I love waking up and going to work every day. And of course, I have challenges as well. I definitely am not immune to these human conditions, that my clients, are going through. So I am just always honored to be inspired and support, my clients, because they are doing the exact same for me.
Wonderful. Kersten, can you tell us how to get a hold of you if someone wants to know more?
Yeah. My phone is 970-456-2070. That's probably the best way to reach me right now, as my email and website are just in the process of changing.
Okay, so again, that's 970-456-2070, and we'll put that in the show notes as well if you need to look that up.
Great. Thank you, Kimberly.
Right. You bet. Thanks so much, and I hope that some folks will come and make your acquaintance.
Thank you. Me too. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to Roaring Fork Wellness Weekly. You can learn more at www.rfwellness.com. Have a great week.